Welcome, viewers, to Figure Drawing Basics, Part 36 of the Art Lounge Alley. I'm your host. I'm going to get into it in just a few minutes, right before I, well, rather, right after I introduce you guys to the Patreon page launch. It is something that happened about a couple of weeks ago, I think. There are several tiers on there that I think are pretty fun. It should be interesting once you guys start submitting your work in there. So without further ado, let me show you. We've got tier 1, which is official patron. It's pretty affordable, $2 per month. You help support the stream, have it keep going. You get access to the Discord server, and your patron name is listed in the credits. I'm going to start doing credits once you guys are going to pledge at the end of the stream, and you will find a thank you there. Then we got tier 2 all access patron. That's for $5 per month. You get early access to finished pages before anybody else does, before any other social media platforms see it. You guys will have the exclusive sneak peek. And then you will also see exclusive content. So things that I'm not going to be posting on social media, it's only going to be for patrons, and as well as work in progress and behind the scenes, and the previous tier benefits as well, like having your name listed in the credits. Then we've got tier 3 critique submissions tier. It's $15 per month. At the moment, there's no cap to how much you could submit per month. So if you're working on something, you want to get some input, you want to get some tips and tricks and pointers on where you could improve, this is a great tier for that. There's some requirements there. You could read through it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you got. I don't want to go too into it because it's going to steal some time from the stream itself. So you could also check out the video that I launched with the Patreon page launch, which talks about each tier in extensive detail. You get a really good understanding of what's going on. This is going to be every Friday. I'm going to hold the critique stream, so it's going to substitute what you guys are going to see this week. And it's going to be held for 2 hours, so the more submissions, the better. Then the next one is the Kickstarter patron page. So for $25 per month, or one-time submission, it's really up to you guys, you get a high-resolution digital painting done of you. I will send you that file, and I do encourage you guys to wear masks, makeup, glasses, expressive face expressions, hats, and accessories. They're all fun. That's going to make the stream more interesting, but it's not required. You could just send me a simple profile photo of you from your head down to your chest, and I'll send you that file once it's done. And it's going to be on Thursdays. I'm going to be streaming it for 2 hours, so it should be interesting. Get your creativity hat on, and you will also get all the previous tier benefits as well. Then we got the next one. This is more extensive. There's more info on here. I highly encourage you guys to read through it. It's tier 4 artist promotion. So if you're an intermediate or advanced artist and you want to get airtime on Art Lounge Alley, there's some requirements there. Read through them, and as I mentioned, you can always ask me questions to get a better understanding of how to be on the stream. Then we got tier 5 private tutoring. Pretty self-explanatory. It's limited to 15 people. It's $65 per month. You get 4 personal video lessons per month, 1 each week, and you get the PSD file that I'm going to be working on each time. So you could check it out, look at it at your own pace, at your own time. Then we got an exclusive Discord channel dedicated to you. So each member of this tier is going to have a channel dedicated just for them, so that way we can have a one-on-one. You can leave me comments, you can leave me questions and your progress, and I'll write you back and talk about it in the next video that I'm going to send you. And you also get all the other tier benefits as well. That's pretty much it, y'all. Take a look through. It's on the Twitch channel listed with all the other social media links, so you guys can get a better idea of each tier. And with that said, I am gonna jump into today's stream. So I'm gonna continue on where I left off yesterday. This is the last page, rather. And as you guys could see, I'm trying to fill up as much of the page as possible before I depart from this sketchbook. I'm gonna be revisiting it, obviously, for drawing comics. I still got a couple of spaces left actually to work on, and there's some pages that I'm going to be scanning for all you patrons out there who are looking for content to draw from, to learn from. I'm going to be uploading these pages specifically for that, and as well as finishing up these panels by coloring them, inking them, that sort of thing. So I'm not fully done with it, but I do have to start a new book for drawing basics. But for now, before I part with it, and I'm pretty sure I should be done by the end of this week. So Friday I should be finished with it completely. There shouldn't be any more space really for me to work on. But for the remainder, I'm just going to be drawing all these figures. As you guys could see, I'm just like filling up the space with all these figure drawings, getting as much practice with them as possible. You can see I filled up all these pages. It's important, no matter how much you learn, to just, I feel like, to revisit it. It's a fun exercise, and it really dedicates itself to you when you're sketching things. So rather than sitting down and not knowing what you're sketching, you could start off by drawing these basic shapes of the human figure. You know, people say, oh, you should sketch out whatever it is that you're drawing, and this is the go-to when it comes to it, you know, rather than it just being chaotic lines that really don't give you any sort of direction. You could just substitute them with actually drawing out these shapes. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's almost instinctual. Like when you sit down to sketch, rather than it just being nothing and you're just working through the paper, you just immediately start fleshing out the body in these simple forms. So it's really beneficial, and I could see the benefit of it in myself. You know, when I'm sitting down to draw, whether it's character concepts or whatnot, it's a lot easier to jump into it using this method. Yeah, so there aren't really, as I mentioned, there isn't that much. There's some spaces here, and it's predominantly in the panels, around the panels, that there's space to do this kind of stuff. So I'm trying to find where else I could do it. I guess I could do it here as well. So there's quite a bit, and I'm going to try to finish up as much of it as possible. Let's see, how far back did we go from? I feel like that is it, pretty much. I don't know if there are other pages that really have space. Ooh, that's a really large amount of space there. Part of me wants to do it, and the other part of me is fighting against it, because it's like, keep those pages simply for comic panels. But it's a sketchbook. This isn't like, and these aren't exactly my panels, you know. This is me studying John Buscema's work. So with that said, let me fill it up, and I'm gonna start out the same way as I always do. Now I'm gonna do something that I wasn't talking about much throughout these sessions, these drawing basic sessions, which is drawing the gesture lines for the entire figure. So that way, from that gesture line, I could start structuring it more. You know, let's just say this is the beam to the building, and then I'm gonna start laying on more skeletal structure on top of it before I start laying on the bricks, which would be the detail if we're talking about drawing. So at the moment, I'm just going to resort to quickly fleshing out the figure this way. Light lines, not too hard. Still not dedicating myself to anything just yet until everything's kind of fleshed out. There is some groundwork and things look right. If you guys can remember, the width of the arms is half a head. So this looks about right. If you were to cut that in half, the head, and measure the width, it would be about this width of the arm. Despite it being in perspective, you could still approximate your like decision on how wide things should be. And that's really the whole point of it. It's like, you know, you're not going to draw the figure every single time with the straight on shot so that you can measure everything exactly as it is, but it's a good basis. It's good to have that as your starting point. Then the next part is the foot, right? The foot is supposed to be a little bit bigger than the head. And again, you could just tell. You could take the time to actually measure it, and you could see that it is slightly bigger. It shouldn't be too big. You shouldn't have like an entire too much space going above from the head. It should just be a little bit, and I'll show you guys, for those of you who are just tuning in, what this is. This page, which is available on Patreon, I got both of these pages scanned. You can download them and just either have them side by side with you when you're doing digital drawings, or you could print it and have it next to you when you're drawing traditionally. It's a useful page. It really goes into detail about all the measurements using the head as the measurement tool. And you could see here, this is what I was talking about. The arm is about half the head. And here you could see, like right here, the foot is just a little bit bigger than a head, as you could see. So same idea here. You could depend on that foundation as your basis. Otherwise, how would you know where to stop if you're drawing the foot, like how big it should be or how small it should be, if it's not for understanding the head as a unit of measurement? And that's the trouble with not learning that and just trying to always eye things. You're spending more time trying to eye stuff and hopefully develop the visual understanding without actually mentally understanding it, without like really getting these principles, just intuitively being able to recognize it. It's a lot more time consuming than it is to just understand it in this method and then just building from that. You want to spend more time actually fleshing out the drawing and getting the pose right, and creating a scene or whatever it is if you're doing comics, for example, rather than wrestling with the anatomy. So big benefit to learning this whole like head as the unit of measurement. Once again, I'm going to draw this There's something I am noticing that isn't present at the moment, which is the chat box is not showing for some reason. The pretzel songs. I know I mentioned that before, and suddenly it's not there. I didn't really change anything about it, but that's good news, I guess. Chat is pretty clear. It's kind of weird. Alright, anyways. So still fleshing things out. I have the gestural drawing here. It's pretty much stick figure. For those of you who are like, I only know how to draw stick figures. I don't know how to draw. You're actually making some stride there. It is beneficial. It's actually very useful. Again, you're creating some framework for yourself to make sure things actually fit into the page, go in the direction you want it to go, as opposed to just flailing and hoping it happens as you draw. And I give this advice from experience. For me, it was the same idea when I was younger and I was drawing for a very long time, actually. I did just that. I tried to develop this like intuitive way to notice things and build from that. But once I learned this, it really cut my time drastically. And it also gave me the confidence of knowing that I understand the figure better, that I'm getting the proportions right, and the figure is balanced. It's not tilted because, I spent all that time developing details at the top, and then by the time I got to the foot, the entire figure is leaning in a direction that I don't want it to, so. Creating these stick figures, creating these guidelines really saves time. You don't have to erase, you don't have to try to cover it up, which I see very often. Like super muscular physique and all this other stuff, but because they didn't pay attention to the balance of their figure, no matter how much detail they put into it, it just looks wonky, And I saw this just recently, actually. I was browsing through Instagram, and I saw an example, and I clicked on that profile. The person has like 15,000 followers, and he's doing a lot of work there, but there's this very common mistake, and I couldn't get it. And I was like, the guy is good. He knows what he's doing. So why not just fix that part? But very muscular, like got all the details in there, but the entire drawing is tilted. Not in a balanced way, it looks off balance. This is an example of what I was talking about here. Where is it? There you go. Like this kind of thing was going on, where the figure was in this kind of pose, or it wanted to be in this kind of pose, but it ended up being this, and it was the person walking. And it wasn't on purpose, it wasn't stylized, it wasn't like the angle of the shot was tilted, it was just the figure itself was tilted, and it made the drawing look bad. So you want to avoid that, covering it up isn't really doing you much good. And yourself, like, oh, I'm actually just trying to take a shortcut. And I know that's wrong with my image, but I'm going to pretend like it's not. And that's not good. You want to get over all these boundaries for yourself. In a sense, you want to level up, right? Get better at drawing. And drawing these guidelines at the beginning, creating that gestural line to give yourself guidance on which direction you should draw the entire figure in. If he is falling backwards, you could give that swooping sort of line to work on, and make sure things all the way down to the feet follow that pattern. Then another one that I've seen recently where it's like really good backgrounds and the face looks right, the muscles are right, but then hands, I don't know, look like crow's feet. They don't really understand how the fingers curl in perspective and that sort of thing. So everything else is fleshed out so well, but then boom, like you really look at it and you see like the hands are just sticking out so much out of the image because everything else looks great. Your eye is just like looking through the entire image. And then just, I guess for me, because I'm doing all this like figure studying and all that, it really stood out. So it ruined the image kind of, just the thing that I could see the most were the hands. Try to squeeze another guy right here. I kind of want him colliding with the other ones, if that's gonna happen. It's okay for them to touch. Let's see, I'm gonna draw through So this is going to be a lot lighter. I just don't want to make the hand too, or the arm rather, too long. So by drawing through, as in making this figure see-through for a moment, it'll help me make sure it stays in proportion. Every time I look over at chat, I'm like, is it just something wrong with chat right now? I'm gonna test it. I'm gonna type in test. No, it shows up. It's interesting. Maybe maybe Twitch fixed it up. Alright, so I drew it out lightly. Now I could just go back and really define these lines. And if you guys notice, I'm also trying to keep distance from the tip of the pencil, not drawn like this. Some people ask, like, why is that important? You know, that seems to be more of like a style thing or just a personal preference. Like, well, it's true, it could be, but it also does have disadvantages to it. When you hold the pencil that close to the tip, you can't see the entire image that you're drawing. And that's important when you're trying to especially measure out proportions and trying to see how big you're drawing something in relation to other parts of the body. So this really obstructs that. You're focused very much on that very little space, when really you should be studying kind of like the entire drawing, the panel that you're working on, the page that you're working on. And this allows it. That's one. Two, notice how I could really get long range of motion. And I'm only using my fingers to do it, like 2 of my fingers, 3 of them. Whereas if I have it like this and I want to make broad strokes, you could see my wrist is actually, it's limited, right, in terms of how far I can go. It's stiff. It's just not a pleasant experience. Whereas keeping it like this and keeping it loose and light makes it more of a pleasant sort of gliding sensation. Whereas the other one just feels like you're fighting the pencil and the paper. You know, you're just like, I'm going to control this pencil as much as I can. I'm going to control my lines as much as I can. And then you grind it into the paper, and that becomes a problem when you want to erase and reposition things, you know, shift things a little bit. The line is still there. It's still in your line of vision. When you're trying to make new ones, the pencil kind of falls into the groove of the paper because you've been pressing so hard. It just kind of encourages that, you know, for me personally, that's what I see it as. Like, once I start holding my pencil to that point, it encourages this very rigid, you know, rigid as in range of motion is limited, lines are pretty, I don't know, forced in some way. And it is uncomfortable, especially for beginners, because at this distance, your lines could be wobbly, more wobbly than they are when you're holding it up close. You know, the closer you are towards the tip, the less room it has to wiggle around. But you want to get used to that, and eventually it's going to be your preferred way of holding a pencil. With all the benefits, as I mentioned, range of motion increase, loose feeling experience, and you get the scope of the entire drawing. This music reminds me of this great game that I played not too long ago called Black Sade. And it's this like crime thriller game where you play a detective and you go around questioning people around town to figure out what happened to this person who died. So it like circles around like this boxing ring, and this guy who ends up what seems to be hanging himself, but Black Sade, I want to say. I don't remember, it was a while ago, but it's a comic book also, and they recently released like a new season of it, new saga, new period. I don't know, but it's a great comic book. It's all like anthropomorphized kind of animals, like they're all human form, but they're animals as well. But it's really well drawn. Like the backgrounds are excellent. It's in the city. The way he draws the cityscapes, it's beautiful work. And the game was a lot of fun. It was cool trying to figure out what's wrong, and you go around different parts of the city or neighborhood, and you get to know like all the characters, and you have to figure out based on them like what's going on. You have to pick the right answers in order to get to the next point, get to the next clue. So you kind of have to like interrogate each person. So if you enjoy that kind of stuff, check that out. It's a really good game. And the comic book, you know, I'm gonna get the comic book soon as well. As I mentioned, I got like such a huge list. I have a huge collection that I'm like reading through on my iPad as well. But every time I sit down to read, I'm like, I should be drawing. Why am I doing that? I don't know. Not enough time in the day. Not enough time in the day at all. Now I'm gonna do a challenge here, just to show the other advantage of drawing the figure using these basic forms. Can I fit like a little body over here? I feel like I'm really trying to get as much in as possible. And then there's like this section here. Alright, so since I really like this, I'm gonna leave it alone. And what I am gonna do is I'm gonna start inking these because I think it'll make the page look more interesting. And I think one of the reasons why I've become more used to keeping that the pencil at a distance is also because of this. This is something that I was talking about before. Inking also teaches you focus. You know, you can't make the same mistakes you can with a pencil. As you guys can see, there's like multiple lines. It's all over the place. You make a mistake, you could erase it. Inks, not so much. You could still do it, it's just a lot more work. So rather than being messy with it and doing all that work to correct it, it pushes you to really focus and like make sure you make the right lines. As well as appreciate the sensitivity of the brush. So if you press too hard, you're going to get some lines that you were not looking for. And that carries over into pencils. Plus, I really like inking. I think it's relaxing in some ways. You're just tracing lines, really. Well, when it comes to this, some inkers definitely add more to the drawing than just tracing them. I remember that's a debate in this movie called Chasing Amy by Kevin Smith. If you guys haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's a good movie. It's interesting. Good take on relationships and a lot of the stuff that they talk about. I'm sure that pretty much, well, I'm going to say a lot of people could relate to, and they could say like, and that is something that happens. Or we do experience that wonder. It's probably why it was a good movie, because a lot of people could relate to it. At a certain age, at a certain point. And I want to say that there's some sort of like beatnik quality to the dialogue, like the script and how people are discussing and debating various topics, which I like. You know, controversial topics, they're talking about all sorts of things that usually would just blow out to be really uncomfortable discussions, and how people handle them, how they talk about it. But in the style of the movie, I think it's very well done. People actually listen to each other, they form really good points. I'm gonna go and say that's probably my favorite movie from Kevin Smith. I like Clerks 1 and Jay and Silent Bob are fun. But yeah, I think Chasing Amy was my favorite from all his films. Oh no. I think I accidentally dabbed it. Well, it's slowly coming to an end, ladies and gents, for Drawing Basics. I know I did more. Where are the other figure sketches? Or was that really it? I also want to start drawing hands on there. But I don't want to skip to it because after the head, well, there's like quite a bit on the head. I'm going to be drawing some eyes as well. Gonna draw the head in different examples. I'm gonna try to do the neck as well. I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't seem to be very well or really informative about it, but I'm still gonna do it for the sake of just doing as much as possible on there. And before I get to the hands, yeah, there's quite a bit. So I'm gonna hold off on that. Well, anyways, ladies and gents, thanks for tuning in to another stream of Drawing Basics here at the Art Lounge Alley. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and I will be back for coloring comics, which is probably going to be more inking, but I'm going to try to just limit it to one panel. So like this was done, and surprisingly, it turned out better than I expected it to. Trying to see if I should make some corrections anywhere else. Still gonna work on this bush. This doesn't even look like a bush, it just looks like a blob of green. So I might just do a little bit of correction on there, do some inking on this one, and then do color pencil work on something that I've completed. In fact, I might finish this off as well. Alright, y'all, so stick around. I'll be back for more John Buscema's work. And if you enjoy the content, hit the like button and subscribe button. They both help the stream grow and will be greatly appreciated.